Now, despite the fact this political party has only been active for a month, I've just seen polling today suggesting that reform and what I stand for is now the second most popular amongst the younger generation in this country. And actually, I believe that within a short space of time, our objectives, our goals, our policies, our thoughts, our feelings, our principles can become the number one amongst young people in this country. And I've pretty much given up with the millennials. They're gone. They're gone. I mean, they talk about work-life balance and, no one wants to get out of bed in the morning and they think the state owes them a living. I'm seeing amongst Gen Z something very, very different. Despite what their school teachers and university lecturers are telling them, I'm seeing great hope among Gen Z for the kind of principles that we believe in. I'm seeing it in France at the moment, where we're heading up for the second round of these French elections. And even though Marine Le Pen's economic policies might be deeply socialist, culturally, she believes in La France. And I fully understand why. I see Trump doing amazingly well with young people in America. And suddenly, even though I'm 60, some young people, for some reason, think I'm cool. So actually, I am seeing great hope. Thank goodness.
So I want to approach this from a psychological perspective for a moment with regards to your emphasis on family, community, and country. We're neck deep in identity politics. I suppose that's the core of the so-called culture war. And progressives in particular suffer from a pathology of atomized liberalism because it's based on a misapprehension of psychological understanding. They believe that identity is something that can only be defined by the individual. But it's even more atomized than that. It's not only is identity only proclaimed subjectively, no matter what it was, but that very subjectivity is actually disintegrated into racial identity, ethnic identity, or sexual identity. And so what that means is that it's a very small fragment of the subjective that's defining identity. And so then you might say, okay, well, what truly defines identity? And your emphasis on family, community, and country is a much more psychologically and socially astute vision. Human beings are very, very, very social. We're communal organisms. We live in pair-bonded sexual arrangements in the main. If we're mature, we live in families that have multi-generational commitments. We live in communities that can scale upward to the level of a nation. We're instantiated at every level. Married couple, family, local community, town, state, nation. All of those are part of identity. And then the core of identity is the sacrifice of individual whim to that broader community and the future. So it's a sacrificial gesture on the part of the individual to establish a mature identity that includes other people in the future. That's why there's so much emphasis on sacrifice in the Judeo-Christian tradition. The community is based on sacrifice. That's absolutely 100% accurate. And so I've been talking to young people all around the world. And one of the things that makes the crowds go silent that the conservatives have at their fingertips that you've already touched upon is that the meaning that all these young people are missing in their life is going to be found in their willingness to sacrifice their idiot individual whims for something that's beyond them, for an identity that stretches beyond them to their marital partner, to their family, to their community, to their city, to their state, to their country, under God. That whole upward striving, communal and future-oriented identity, that's where all the meaning is, because that's the most fundamental expression of the instinct that unites us. And it's also where the adventure is, because it is the case that the more responsibility you take onto yourself in that sacrificial manner, the more adventurous and meaningful and deep your life becomes. And conservatives can explain this to young people. It's like, your missing value is to be found in the voluntary adoption of responsibility. And, they understand this because every time I say those sorts of things to the audiences that I'm speaking to, they go dead silent. Because no one's put this out for 60 years. And so your emphasis, and I think the emphasis on the rising right around the world, on the necessity for family, community, and country as higher level integrating structures with regards to identity, that gives you security, so that quells anxiety. And it gives you hope because it gives you something to do. And you need something to do to have hope and to have that positive meaning in your life. It's adventure through responsibility. And conservatives have that to sell if they're wise, to sell that to young people, to offer that to young people, to invite young people to that.
Well, one of the most exciting things in life is to be part of a team, isn't it? You work together with other individuals, and if you achieve a victory, a goal together, it always feels better somehow as part of a team than just for yourself. There are some exceptions to that, but generally, I think that is true. Look, I am going to go on fighting. In fact, to be honest, I've only just started properly fighting atomized liberalism. I want us to completely abolish the diversity and inclusion laws, completely abolish the Equalities Act that was brought in by the Labour Party in 2010, and which the Conservatives haven't had the guts to even talk about because they're cowards. And I want us to basically say, we don't care. We don't care what you are. I was asked the other day, what was I going to do for the black community? Do you know what I said? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I couldn't give a damn whether you're black or white, whether you're gay or straight. I really don't care. You'll be judged by your character. You'll be judged by your ability. You'll be judged by, are you a contributor to society or a taker out? And right at the moment, this is considered to be dangerous, radical thinking. But I think if we can start to explain why this matters, if we can start to explain that that's the only way we're going to have any chance of a unified society that works together, with mutual benefit for each other, I think this is one of the next great political battles. And we're going to need some quite brave leaders to take it on. But I have to say, the lunacy we saw with Black Lives Matter in 2020, maybe people have begun to reflect ever so slightly on that. We've got to treat human beings as being equal before the law, judge them on their values, judge them on their character, judge them on their merits, not by their skin color or sexual preference.
Yeah, well, a ringing endorsement of the civil rights movement from like 1963, you'd think we would have figured that out. So maybe to close, sir, if you don't mind, why don't you just tell people, well, what do you expect from the election? Where are you sitting now? And where is your party sitting? And also, why are you not concerned, or how are you concerned about the fact that, you're splitting the vote in the center and on the right, let's say, and of course, by doing so, in some ways, playing into the hands of the idiot progressives that are going to end up running your country. So let's deal with both of those. What's the risk in what you're doing with regards to the union of the Conservatives? And then what do you think's going to happen to your party in particular in this upcoming election?
Well, point number one is the Conservatives don't need my help to destroy their election chances. They've done it to themselves. They were going to lose anyway. And it's very interesting. A large number of people who say they'll vote for me, if I wasn't here, wouldn't bother to vote at all. That's how disenchanted they are with the whole thing. As I said earlier, a Labour government is going to happen. The Conservatives deserve to lose. Labour don't deserve to win, but they're going to win. What I'm doing here is putting a first big marker down, albeit just in the space of a few weeks. We are going to get millions of votes. We are going to get our first people elected into that parliament. And I might remind people, just as happened to a party called Reform in Canada some years ago. Everyone said, oh no, reform will split the vote. Preston Manning's a right-wing nut job. All the same kind of criticisms. And in the end, reform won. And as you know, Stephen Harper proved to be a very good prime minister in many ways of Canada, having first been elected as a Reform MP and then effectively doing a reverse takeover of the very tired and increasingly progressive Conservative Party. I am trying to do something very similar to what Reform did in Canada all those 30 years ago. And to be honest with you, it's one of the reasons I chose the name Reform UK, seeing inspiration from what happened when common sense got back into Canadian politics. Sadly now long disappeared under Trudeau. So look, we're going to get, yes. We're going to get millions of votes. We're going to win those seats, but I'm going to do this differently. This is not going to be just about what we can do in Parliament. We are going to build, this is my ambition, we're going to build a mass movement for common sense. And we're going to build it not just because we object to what the progressives have done to us, but because we believe in family, community, and country. And I think the more people, particularly young people, hear those arguments, the more successful we'll be over the coming years.
Well, sir, that's an excellent place to stop. And we've timed it within the minute. So that always brooks well for paying careful attention. Good luck later this. We'll want to have a conversation at some point in the future about this Alliance for Responsible Citizenship that's trying to do on the international side pretty much what you guys are trying to do on the national side. And so I do think there's a real opportunity here for the right and the classic liberals to come together to produce an invitational vision of the future that can lift young people and the countries they're part of out of this idiot apocalypse mongering malaise that seems to be mandatory from the moral perspective as far as the anti-human radicals who hate Western civilization are concerned. So good luck later this week.
Thank you.
We're watching with bated breath in Canada and everywhere else. Yeah, very good to talk to you.
Thank you, Jordan.